Hello. All right. Good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast or in Europe or Africa or something, or possibly even Australia. I think in Australia, you're probably sleeping by now. Speaking of sleeping, that's today's topic. We're going to be talking about sleeping. Yes. In the chat, welcome to the Barton webinar. In the chat, tell us how many hours of sleep you got last night. And what else do we want to ask them, Dr. Saunders?
We want to ask them when they went to sleep last night. What time?
Yes. What time did you go to bed last night and fall asleep? Tell us in the chat. This is an interactive call, so we would love to hear from each and every one of you. It doesn't take very much effort to hop over in the chat and just do a little typing and let us know you're alive and kicking, and that there isn't like a robotic auto webinar joining system on your computer that we need to worry about. So, all right, we got some good stuff coming in here. Went to sleep before 10 p.m., got 9 hours of sleep. Awesome. Went to bed about 10:30, 8 hours from 9 to 5, 11:30 p.m., 10 p.m., and slept 8 hours straight. Slept until 7 hours. So good stuff. I confess I went to bed pretty late last night, 12:20, something like that. I got sucked into a movie my boys were watching that had Jack Black in it. It was kind of funny, and then it turned a little disturbing, so I went to bed early, or before the movie was over. All right, so let me do a little quick housekeeping. Thanks for chiming in, everybody. Good to have you here. We're going to talk about, well, this is the diabetes webinar with Barton Publishing and Barton Nutrition. I'm your host, Joe Barton, and our medical advisor expert, Dr. Scott Saunders, is here as well. We've been doing this for close to a year now, and Leslie is running the controls, thankfully, and recording and posting on Facebook and all that good stuff. And so we are here to help you guys answer questions about reversing type 2 diabetes and using natural remedies and natural methods as opposed to traditional methods, which often don't work for various reasons. So Dr. Saunders is going to take it away here. And real quick disclaimer that this is for informational purposes only, because everybody's different. And so we don't know your personal situations. And so, yeah, don't hold it against us if you hear something and go out and do something that, you know, makes you lose an eyeball or something. Like, that's not our fault, right?
Come on, Joe, take responsibility.
Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff. Enjoy having everybody joining us, and look forward to your questions here. We'll get to the questions a little later in the call, but now Dr. Saunders is going to tell us about sleep. All right.
Okay. The first thing I want to do is for the last several times, we've had a few questions because we have people all over the world, and there's two different ways of looking at blood sugar numbers. And so in the United States, we use milligrams per deciliter of sugar. And that's where I always come up with the 70 to 90 range is the optimal, and over 100 is where it gets high. And those are the numbers we're looking at. And so when you're on phase 1 of the program, and it says that the reason you know you can go on to phase 2 is because your numbers are consistently between 70 and 90. That is milligrams per deciliter. Well, in most other areas of the world, they're using a different measurement of millimoles per liter. So that's a very different measurement. So if any of you are on that, your millimoles per liter, the optimal is between 4 and 5. So 4.0 to 5.0, that's the range. That's the range you want to be in for the optimum range. And when you're in that, consistently in that 4 to 5 range, then you know you're ready to move on to phase 2. So just so that all of you know that, in case you're in Canada or Europe or somewhere else where they use the other machines that we don't use in the United States. So, okay, now sleep. I can't tell you how important sleep is, but I'm going to outline metabolism, because metabolism is all the chemical reactions that are going on in our body. And we all have a metabolism, of course, otherwise we'd be dead. And especially all the energy. So let's start out with metabolism. Okay, there are two different kinds of metabolism. There's the catabolic, and then the other kind is anabolic. Okay, this is really important because when you're catabolic, you're breaking down your everything. Everything in your body is breaking down when you're catabolic because you're awake, it's light outside, and light has a lot to do with it too. And you're doing stuff, you're active, you're eating, and you make a hormone called cortisol, or cortisone. Now, this is the adrenal hormone that causes the catabolic metabolism. This causes you to break down your body. Well, it doesn't cause you to break down your body, but while you're active and doing stuff, think of it like driving a car. You're driving your car and you can be as careful as you want, but if you're driving, if the engine's running, then it's getting hot and it's wearing out. If you're driving along, then your tires are wearing out, and you're sitting in your seat's wearing out. So everything about your car is wearing out because you're driving it. Well, the body's exactly like that. While you're driving, while you're doing stuff, while you're doing all this stuff, you're awake, it's light, it's active, you're eating, all of that stuff creates the catabolic metabolism, and you're wearing out your body. There's no way around that unless you want to be dead or asleep all the time, because that's the next part. You can be anabolic during the time when you're exactly the opposite. You're asleep. It's dark outside. You're resting. You're fasting. And you make a different hormone. At night when you're asleep, your cortisol goes from like between 10 and 20 down to 0.05. It's this like huge drop. There's almost none left by the time you reach 10 o'clock at night. And then you make a different hormone called human growth hormone, HGH. Boy, when they found out what human growth hormone does, it's like, whoa, this is really important because this builds up your body, it builds up your muscles. If you want to have big muscles, man, people are like injecting human growth hormone into their stomachs so that they can build more muscles. This initiates the anabolic phase of metabolism. So because human growth hormone is so important, that people need it to fix their bodies, but it doesn't just repair muscles, it makes your brain better. It prevents Alzheimer's disease. It makes your intestines absorb your nutrients better. It makes you more sensitive to endorphins so you have less pain in your life. So all of these anabolic things are like the most important things, but you can't always be anabolic. You'd be asleep all day and all night. That's no good. So we need both. You need to be awake and alert and doing stuff. And then you need to rest and get anabolic and rebuild. That's what your car can't do, is rebuild. You have to buy a new car. In the bodies, we get to rebuild. That's what the anabolic phase is. So I'm going to tell you how to get into the anabolic phase. And that's what's cool. That's what's really cool. Because you don't have to inject. You know, it's like $1,000 a month to inject human growth hormone. You don't have to do that. You get it all by yourself. Your brain, your pituitary gland makes it every night. But there are a few caveats here. One of them is you have to be asleep at 10 p.m. Several of you said, I was asleep by 10. That's good. Because this anabolic phase starts at the beginning of the night when you get into deep sleep. If you've ever seen a sleep studies will show you that your deep sleep phase begins right away, right in the beginning of the night. for the first 4 hours or so, it changes. You're mostly in deep sleep. And then the last 4 hours of sleep, you're mostly in slow wave sleep, light sleep, or what's called REM sleep. So the dreaming part, the REM part, doesn't happen till the end of the night when you're ready to wake up in the morning. Whereas your deep sleep, when you're really completely knocked out, that's when you make your human growth hormone. So it has to happen at this 10 p.m. time. Now, it has to be dark so that you make a hormone called melatonin. And you have to be fasting. When you're fasting, you make a hormone called ghrelin, Grelin. Growth hormone releasing hormone. That's how it got its name. It releases growth hormone. But you don't release growth hormone unless you are fasting. What does fasting mean? Does anybody know? Raise your hand. What does fasting mean? Joe?
Empty stomach.
That's it. That's as simple as it gets. All you have to have is an empty stomach. But what happens? Everything we do in our society, we have artificial lights, so it's not dark. We can be awake all night and active and working, and we can do the night shift. We can eat all day and all night. Some people eat right before bed, and then they get up at midnight and eat snacks all night. Never having an empty stomach. Well, if you never have an empty stomach, you can't make ghrelin. Ghrelin is like so important. That's what repairs all your intestines and stuff. You need this hormone. But you have to have an empty stomach in order to get it. And you know what's really weird about it is it's even water. You can't you can't be sipping water all day long and get ghrelin. You need to really literally have an empty stomach. So people think, well, I'll just have a little bit. No, a little bit. It's like starting your engine, and I'm not going to drive anywhere. I'm just going to start the engine on my car, and then it won't wear out very fast. No, it's wearing out, but it's not going to repair. You know, you take it to the mechanic. The mechanic's not going to fix your car while you're driving it, even if you drive really slow. They may even shut it down and wait till it cools down before they start taking bolts off. You know, it makes sense, and that's kind of the way the body runs. You're not going to fix and repair as long as you're in the catabolic phase. And sleep is so important to that. That's what gives us our circadian rhythm, this awake, sleep, wake, sleep, this day and night, you know, every 12 hours up, every 12 hours down. That circadian rhythm is essential to our repair function as well as our being awake. You know, in the United States especially, but a lot of areas of the world, we have a very narrow circadian rhythm. Get half asleep all day and half awake all night, and half asleep all day and half awake all night. That is not a good way to repair. What you really need is to be totally awake during the day and totally asleep at night. And that means shutting down.
Yeah, what do you mean by half awake?
Half awake, meaning not getting into deep sleep. So some people we had a program once about sleep apnea, and sleep apnea is huge. Sleep apnea, you could be asleep for 12 hours and wake up tired because you're half asleep all night. You never really get deep sleep. So, and part of the reason is going to bed too late. That's part of it, because you've missed your deep sleep time, and now you're into the REM sleep time, and you can REM for 10 hours, but it's not going to be restful sleep. You're not going to get your human growth hormone in. You're not going to get anabolic and rebuild. So if you have sleep apnea, the one thing that prevents is deep sleep, because every time you go into deep sleep, everything totally shuts down and relaxes, and you stop breathing. And then you don't breathe for a little while until your oxygen levels start dropping, and then your body goes and you wake up. And that causes a release of what? Cortisol, adrenaline. And then what? And then you're in the catabolic mode. When you release this adrenaline, you're in the catabolic mode. You won't make human growth hormone if you're making cortisol. So guess what else? If you're stressed out at night especially, you're making cortisol, adrenaline. These are adrenal hormones that cause the catabolic phase. So you don't go into anabolic phase if you're making these hormones. So you have to be asleep. It has to be dark. You have to be resting. You have to stop eating, and you have to get rid of your cortisol. So there's one other thing, sleep apnea releasing the cortisol. But we were just talking about this a minute ago before the program. Leslie was saying us, oh yeah, if I stay up till like 11 or 11:30, I get a second wind, and then I can go for a long time. Well, there's a problem with that. Do you know what the second wind is? Come on, Joe. What is it?
Second wind?
It's cortisol.
Hmm.
You release adrenaline, and then you get your energy back. You go, wow, I got a lot of energy. I'm not even sleepy. Why? Because you release this adrenal hormones, cortisol, and now you're not sleepy anymore. Well, what did you just miss? Well, you just missed your deep sleep. The time when you could have become anabolic. Now it's gone. You missed it. And that's true when they do research on people who don't sleep well. Even if they say, well, I'm a night owl, so I work nights. You know, they've done studies on nurses and police officers, people who do shift work in factories. When they're on the evening shift or the night shift, they don't get anabolic. They're always catabolic, which means they're always breaking down. They're always driving their car, and they're always releasing this cortisol. So they become resistant to the cortisol, and then they don't have a good circadian rhythm, and they're half asleep all day and half awake all night.
So
what?
The 10 p.m., that doesn't change throughout the year with the sunset, sunrise or anything, right?
No, it really doesn't. And that's kind of the funny thing about it. If you were to travel around the world and go to the other side of the world and go, okay, I'll just work all night in China, and then that's the same as if I was all day here. No, it doesn't work that way, because the light hitting your eyes, sunlight, and there's more factors involved than just where you feel better. And so if you go to China, within 2 weeks, you're back to, now you're on China's schedule. And if you're working nights, you're going to be catabolic all the time instead of becoming anabolic.
Yeah.
So that's an issue. You know, sleep is really important for keeping your circadian rhythm good, and for getting this human growth hormone, and for rebuilding. And why is that important? Because this hormone right here, this cortisol, makes you resistant to insulin, and that causes diabetes. I told a story once about a woman who was overweight, Julie, and she had her blood sugar was always in the 200s. And for those of you in Canada, that would be like, she would be like 10, 8, 9, 10. She was always, you know, in the high range. 11. She would even be a little higher, yeah. But we couldn't get it down, even with like 4 medication, injecting 200 units of insulin, and it would not go down to normal. She never had a normal blood sugar until her daughter moved out. Her teenage daughter moved into her own apartment, and they became best friends, and her blood sugar came to normal for the first time in years.
Yeah. Correct.
Because when her daughter was in the house, they were constantly fighting, and it was stress. She was releasing cortisol 24 hours a day. And then when her daughter moved out, she got some rest, and it all went down to normal. So yes, this is really important. If you have a lot of stress and you're always anabolic, you're always catabolic, you're going to get diabetes whether you like it or not. You know, it's not just sleep, but yes, this sleep-wake cycle is really, really important.
So some people can sleep horribly, like, and, you know, violate these rules and not get diabetes. Is like, how do you explain that? Or is there nobody that does that after a while?
No. It depends on your adrenal system and how your adrenal system works. And there's a lot of genetic factors and nutritional factors, and there are so many variables in there. Yeah. Just like why do the Pima Indians in Arizona have an 80% diabetes rate, whereas people from Scandinavia, you've only got a 20 or 10% diabetes rate, and even if they eat the same diet. So it's not all diet either. You know, there's genetic factors and other factors involved. So we have to work around our genes. And when somebody like Julie, the woman I was talking about, has a lot of stress, she's going to have diabetes. So she has to be very careful about the stress that she has. Just like all of us, everybody on this program who's listening because they have diabetes has to be really careful about what they eat because, well, there's some genetic or whatever susceptibility that is so far unnamed.
Yeah. And so that ghrelin you talked about, that isn't really something that you can just like take artificially and bypass anything, right? It has to be produced naturally.
Well, gosh, I don't know if there's any available ghrelin. The only way I know to get it is to have an empty stomach.
So can you tell, like, is there a feeling or anything like that you can tell that you're making ghrelin, like, you know, you're fasting and...
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful feeling that tells you you're getting ghrelin and you're repairing your body and you're fixing your brain and all of this good stuff is happening in the anabolic phase is happening. It's the feeling of hunger. Ghrelin is the hormone that creates the sense of hunger. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, I'm making ghrelin. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
So hunger's good.
Right. And I mean, usually when people are hungry, it's like, well, time to eat. And that's the natural response. You've just been conditioned to that. But really, it's more like time to go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be better to go to sleep hungry. I've had people tell me that they have a hard time going to sleep when they're hungry. And that's because they get low blood sugar. And so normal people, when you stop eating, when your stomach gets empty and you're not absorbing sugar from your intestines anymore, your metabolism's going along and you just switch to fat burning metabolism and you just keep going. No problem. No drop in energy, no problem. But some people, especially if you have insulin resistance, your blood sugar starts dropping low and you don't switch to fat burning metabolism because insulin blocks you from using fat for energy. So what happens? You start getting sweaty and really fatigued and weak and I got to eat something because I feel horrible. Headaches. That's because you have an abnormal metabolism. It's not normal. When you get a normal metabolism, you can sleep on an empty stomach, no problem. So the diabetes solution kit, the purpose of phase 1 is to start you getting a normal metabolism so you can go from sugar burning to fat burning to sugar burning to fat burning and have no change in your energy and you can sleep through either one.
That sounds like a great time to talk about the diabetes solution kit. Let's see, am I on camera or
yeah,
yellow box?
Yeah, we got you.
All right, so this is the diabetes solution kit, which, Leslie, where can they find resources? We'd love to hear from Leslie.
You can go to bartonwebinar.com. I will type that both on Facebook and in the chat here on Zoom.
Awesome. So the bartonwebinar.com, this is where you can get your copy of the diabetes solution kit, which talks about Dr. Saunders' phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 programs for reversing type 2 diabetes with diet and what you eat, really, or what you don't eat, and sleep, and all these other remedies, natural remedies that are good for you. And like today's webinar has been awesome, Dr. Saunders. You've been sharing a lot of great information, and this is stuff that people don't learn typically from their normal doctor. So thanks for getting into this. I had a quick question, and somebody I saw had asked something about this, but melatonin, can you talk about melatonin?
Oh yeah. Okay. So melatonin is a wonderful hormone, and that the reason we need the dark right here, is because as the lights go down, our pineal gland starts making something called melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone, but it's not only made in the pineal gland, it's in your food. There's melatonin in your food. There's melatonin in a lot of your intestinal mucosal lining, the lining of your intestines. A lot of cells in your body make melatonin. Melatonin isn't only made in the brain. It's used all over the body. And the way it got its name is because it was the hormone that caused melanin to be made in the skin. Melanin is the color. So people who have darker skin have more melanin, producing more melatonin in their body. Okay, so this cycle of melatonin, when it's released directly into the brain, it's released actually into one of the ventricles of the brain, where there's the fluid cavities that go all over in the brain. That turns off everything and allows you to sleep, and it helps the relaxation phase, and that's really important for the human growth hormone release. So, but what's really cool about melatonin, it's one of the few hormones that you can take and not mess up your normal pineal gland function. Okay. In fact, what's really cool, and the reason this is kind of important, is the lights, the artificial lights that we're looking at all the time, prevent us from making melatonin in the brain. And melatonin in the brain is an antioxidant. It actually blocks the inflammation of the brain, and it prevents Alzheimer's disease. In fact, there's a good correlation in several studies that show more melatonin, less Alzheimer's, more melatonin, less Parkinson's, more melatonin, less multiple sclerosis. All of the degenerative brain diseases are directly correlated with less melatonin. So to avoid brain degeneration, it's a good idea to have more melatonin. And the way to do that is turn off all the lights. And you can do that naturally. That will naturally do it. Around what, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, turn off the lights. Well, the sun's going down now at 10 o'clock, so I don't know if that would be very helpful. What's interesting is that the melatonin, it's the blue light that primarily makes melatonin. And if you look at screens, like television screens and all that, they always have a blue glow to them. That's bad for melatonin. Whereas if you have a yellow light, like a candlelight, for example, look at a candlelight, that will not prevent you from making melatonin. The other thing is your peripheral vision is really important, because that's where they're called the afferent nerves go to the pineal gland, come primarily from your peripheral vision, not from your central focus. So you could be reading a book with a black, dark, in a dark room, reading a book with a, like a candlelight or a small light in a dark room, and not mess up your melatonin, whereas you might if you were watching TV. Okay, so that's the natural melatonin. Now, what if you were to take it? It comes in various strengths, and for cancer treatment, they're using like hundreds of milligrams. But most people need around 1 milligram would be enough to induce the sleep state. Don't be afraid to take it if you're taking 3 or 6 or 10 milligrams. That's okay. Remember, more melatonin means less Alzheimer's disease. And being consistent about that is a good idea. So if you're taking it for a long time, and your pineal gland isn't making it, when you stop taking it, it only takes 1 day for your pineal gland to start making it again. So it's not like you're going to, like you do with the adrenal glands. If you're taking cortisol and you shut off your adrenal glands, it might take 2 weeks for them to come back. Pineal gland's not like that. It's immediately comes back, because you got to think about it. It's on and off every day. On when it's dark, off when it's light. On when it's off, dark. So it's every day it's on and off. So it's a different thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so you can take more. It's okay. Getting your sleep, especially your deep sleep, by 10 o'clock is more important. So if you don't make it naturally, fine, take it. It's good.
So if you take melatonin pills right before bed, how does that affect the empty stomach rule?
Well, you still don't make ghrelin, and you may not make human growth hormone, so you may not be anabolic even if you do have melatonin. Melatonin does not induce the anabolic state. It just gets you to sleep so that you can get into the anabolic state.
Okay. So is there a way to get melatonin, like if you are supplementing it, is there anything other than going through the stomach? Like a skin spray or anything like that, or?
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways of doing it. But if you're just taking melatonin, I get what you're saying. So if you take melatonin right before bed, you don't have an empty stomach, and then you're not going to make ghrelin, and then you're not going to get humor. Okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But, okay. Do you know what? I think that, if you just took melatonin with water an hour before bed, I suspect that's going to be completely out of your stomach. Your stomach's going to be empty by the time you go to bed anyway.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. Good to know. So it's.
And someone else did ask the question too. I believe it was Grace. What if you're taking other pills as well? Are those okay to take at night?
Generally, if you think of pills like supplements, if you think of them as food, if you induce your intestinal enzymes and you turn on your intestines, it's not a good idea. In fact, most studies show that you absorb nutrients better taken during the day. We should do a program on what you take at night, what you take during the day. That would be really interesting, a supplement program, because there is a difference. So some of them you can take at night. They don't induce the pancreas to make enzymes, the stomach to make acid. In fact, in our the acid reflux solution kit, one of the things it talks about is to have a little slice of apple before you go to bed. Well, wait a minute, that won't be an empty stomach. That's true. It is because the sweet of the apple shuts off the acid. There's two different enzymes that make acid. One of them causes a lot of acid to be produced, and that's when you eat protein. And then when you eat sugar or carbohydrate, it shuts off that and causes you to make very low acid. So that's more for a treatment of a problem, and it empties out pretty quickly. And I honestly can't tell you what effect it's going to have on your anabolic state.
Mm-hmm.
A question that came in on Facebook from Mary, and we didn't mention this, but when should you stop eating then, so that you have an empty stomach?
Oh, excellent question. Okay, so there's no rule, because the rule is to have an empty stomach. How do you know you have an empty stomach? You're hungry. So that's the best way to do it. But just sort of, if you eat an average meal of around 1,000, 1,200 calories, it's going to take about 4 hours to empty out of your stomach. So you want to be done by 6 o'clock. However, the research by Sachin Panda on circadian rhythm showed that if you move that to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's even better. That you get more of the anabolic state, you burn more fat. You actually can lose weight that way by eating like 2 meals a day, 8 and 3. Excuse me. So by 6 o'clock, let's say you ate like half a pizza and drank a pint of beer. Okay, that's going to take 8 hours or more to empty out of your stomach, because it's a lot of calories, and the stomach is emptying according to the calories. Everything in a pizza is calories. You have protein, carbohydrate, and fat, and pretty much nothing else. There's no fiber in it. There's nothing else. So there's nothing to empty out except calories. So it's going to be this little bit at a time, and it's going to take a long time. So, if you're going to eat that much food, you better be done by noon, because then your stomach will be empty by 10. So. On the other hand, if all you have is a salad with vinegar on it, it's all green salad with vinegar on it, that's going to take a couple of hours to empty out, even less. And if you're done by 8, then your stomach will be empty. So there's no rule as to what time you have to be done. Most of the research is done 6 o'clock, because an average meal is going to take about 4 hours to empty out. Good
good stuff.
I'll ask another question here about sleep apnea. Are type 2 diabetics more susceptible to getting sleep apnea? And what do you do to get rid of sleep apnea?
Yeah, okay. There is a definite association of sleep apnea with diabetes. They are definitely associated. As to whether they're causal, that depends on several things. One of them is this cortisol thing. if when you have sleep apnea, every time you wake up out of a deep sleep because your oxygen level's dropping low, your carbon dioxide is going up, and you're suffocating, and so you wake up, that's a release of adrenaline, and now that makes you consistently have high cortisol levels. Well, what if you're just a bad sleeper and you don't sleep well at night? Well, guess what? You also release cortisol, and you release more cortisol during the day, and that also makes you resistant to insulin. So that association can be causation. It can be because you're not sleeping, you have diabetes, because it makes you resistant to insulin. And so your insulin level goes up, it makes you put on weight, because remember, insulin tells your body, hold on to fat, make more fat, and don't use it for energy. So then you're more hungry all the time, because every time your stomach gets empty, it's like, oh my gosh, I ran out of energy, I gotta eat something. And so that cycle persists, and it could be caused because you didn't sleep. So that could be an issue. And then other times it is just an association. Well, because you eat a lot, because you gained a lot of weight, the fat stores around the throat narrow the airways, and so you get sleep apnea because of gaining weight. And in those cases, actually with many, if not most cases of sleep apnea can be cured by losing fat. So getting rid of that extra fat, especially where cortisol puts it on, because remember, cortisol put it around your neck and make it really thick. People get like really thick bodies from cortisol, as opposed to if it's pure insulin, you just get a fat belly and you don't put it on anywhere else. So if you lose that fat, then your airways open up and you sleep better at night and you don't have sleep apnea anymore. And that's been proven in studies. So good question.
All right. We had a question, let's see here, from Sandra. I want to start this phase 1 program, but I have not received the medication to assist me. Do you know when it will be available? So I'm assuming she's referring to probably the Synachroma, which is a natural supplement for blood sugar. And so I'll just say real quick that we have been having some issues with shipping, and because of coronavirus. Honestly, there's just a lot of different factors involved there. So we're doing our best to get it out the door as quickly as we can, but we've had issues with our manufacturer. We had to find a new manufacturer, which was actually a bigger one in New York, and they're coming to the rescue, honestly, because one of our main manufacturer ran out of vitamin D and selenium. So we had to find an alternative temporarily just to keep our product in stock. So, but by the end of this week, we're going to have all of our supplements fully in stock, and actually going to have a couple new ones that we'll be releasing and talking about here very soon as well. So, apologize for the delay, and but I think Dr. Saunders, you can speak to this, that you don't have to wait for this to show up before you start phase 1. Like, this is just something that really helps in that. But phase 1, you can start right now.
Yeah, so the idea of Synachroma is that most people are deficient in selenium and most people are deficient in vitamin D. And so it's going to be a helpful thing to make you more sensitive to your insulin. But the phase 1 program still works either way. I mean, either way, to get you more sensitive to your insulin, you still do the diet part of it. So yeah, you don't have to wait. Start right away.
Yeah. Good question, though, because we have been getting more questions about that. So let's see. I think we've got a bunch of questions in the Q&A section. Leslie, you want to start tackling those?
Yeah, this is a good one concerning blood pressure, which we've talked about. My blood pressure is always nice and low. Should I still take the turmeric BP?
Wait, say that again?
My blood pressure is always nice and low. Should I still take
Low.
turmeric BP?
Okay, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. It works pretty well, and it works on a lot of different types of inflammation, and it works in the genes. It actually turns on and off, or turns off some of the genes that create inflammation. If your blood pressure is related to inflammation, you may still need the turmeric. And in that case, what you do is you make a trial off of it and see how your blood pressure is without it. And if you need it more long-term, the best way to take it is 5 days on, 2 days off. You actually need the 2 days off for it to continue to work. Most biological systems require some time off. It requires like a lot and then none, some time off to become more sensitive to it so that it starts working again.
Okay.
Hey, Leslie, I see Eve has a question in here, and could you also get the one she had emailed us about as well?
Yep, perfect.
All right.
Okay, so Eve, we're going to address your email as well. Let's read this question here. What do you do if you just cannot fall asleep at 10? Maybe not until 1. And what if you worked shift work for years? Or if you're traveling regularly and the time zone changes, which we did kind of address. But what are your recommendations?
Okay. There are, we talked about melatonin. You can use melatonin. You take it about 9 p.m. You turn off the lights around you so you don't have a super bright room. When you eat, you make sure you have an empty stomach. In fact, start off with a longer fast, not a shorter fast. Actually, stop at like eating at 3 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, so you're sure you have an empty stomach for a period of time. And you've gone through the phase of low blood sugar, because it's often hard to fall asleep if your blood sugar is dropping low and you're sweating and palpitations and you're releasing a bunch of adrenaline, putting you in the catabolic mode. So that makes it hard. And if that's kind of like you want to change your circadian rhythm, it takes about 1 day for every hour you want to change it. The fastest way to change it is to eat breakfast in the morning and then don't eat anything for 24 hours and eat breakfast. So if you go a few days with just eating at 8 o'clock in the morning and getting up at 6 and eating before 8 o'clock. So if you get up at 6 and eat before 8 and you don't take naps, then that will change your circadian rhythm faster than anything else. The food is an important part of that. NASA did some research on circadian rhythm on jet lag. And they found that, you know, the bright lights affect the melatonin production, and that actually taking melatonin was helpful. But really, it took a day for every hour they wanted to change their circadian rhythm to do it that way. Whereas with the food, you could do it much quicker. You could do it right away. So eating breakfast before 8 o'clock is the important thing, and then not eating at night, skipping dinner.
Okay, and I'm going to read her other question here too. This is from Eve for her husband Terry, who is a type 2 diabetic. He's been taking the Synachroma faithfully and following the diabetes reversal kit. Here's his problem. Monday mornings, his readings were at 10.5. They're in Canada. Then after breakfast, it was 8.7. At supper, around 5:30, it was 6.9 when he went to sleep. Okay, these are hard. I need to start over on reading the numbers. Okay. Monday morning, the reading was 10.5. Then after breakfast, it was 8.7. At supper, around 5:30, it was 6.9, and he went to sleep, and it was 6.4. He got up the next morning, and it was 9.5. These spikes happen every day. The readings in Canada measure different than the ones in the US, and we don't know how to read them. I believe US 117 is equal to 6.5, but she wasn't 100% sure. She just wants to know why the readings keep jumping up when he gets up. And also they seem to jump up when he might eat some fruit like strawberries by about 5 to 6 points.
Yeah, okay. So blood sugar always goes up and down in everybody. So that by itself, that's not an issue. It's not a problem. It's not concerning by itself. When somebody has insulin resistance, it's going to go up higher for every bit of sugar you eat, because you're not going to be able to bring it into your cells very well. if the cells aren't taking it up, then every time you eat something, the blood sugar, instead of having a little bump, you have a big bump because the cells aren't taking it up and it just stays around in the blood the whole time. So the spikes by themselves aren't really a problem, but the numbers that she's giving are all high numbers. They're all, yes, from 120-ish to around, to over 200 in the tens. So those numbers are all high, indicating that the blood, that he is resistant to insulin, and so his cells are not taking up sugar very well. The best thing to do for this is to be on phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit, the diabetes reversal program. During phase 1, you get rid of those carbohydrates, including the strawberries and whatever that has the sugar in it. And by getting rid of that, you train your body to use fat for energy, so that your insulin can go down. You can bring the sugar into your cells, and you can use fat for energy.
Okay, this is good. And then they also were going to reach out to you. They're very interested in your Dial a Doc program as well. So and actually, we could probably post some of that information here again if you would like to do that.
Yeah, that would be fine. I have a limit to the number that I can have, but we've had a few people, and it isn't like crowded, so it's been okay. The number is for the office, the front office, and they can get you set up and get you on the computer and everything and set up an appointment. And that's 805-688-7171. I've had several people, just the cutest people. I just love them. I wish I could tell you who they were, but it's been really great. I've had people from, let's see, Corona near Riverside, California, and New York City, and all over the country, that have, and you know, and they call, they want to know, and they go, okay, I listen to you every week, but you didn't answer this question. Could I do it? And then, yeah, just email them, text, call, answer the question. We're good.
Great.
Hey,
Okay.
one
Good. Did you
quick
see any
thing
questions?
here.
Oops.
So I wanted to celebrate a little bit. Patrick, who's been a long time viewer of ours and participant, reported that yesterday his morning blood sugar was 96, the first time below 100. He's excited and motivated. And so I just wanted to bring out a little bit of a party crowd here. Woo! Celebrate! Woo! Way to go, Patrick. So we're celebrating with you.
That is awesome.
I had to pull out the puppet.
Good work, Patrick. That's awesome.
And he's got a good question here as well. I remember hearing over 40 years ago that any hours of sleep that you get before midnight are worth twice as many hours of sleep after midnight. Have you heard this? Is it true?
I'll also add that my mom always said nothing good happens after midnight. So
yeah.
Gosh, my mom said that too. Is your mom talking to my mom? And the reason they say that is because the deep sleep happens in the first hours of sleep. So that's where you really get the restful sleep, and that's where you start this anabolic phase and rebuilding your body. So even though, yes, it may be worth 2 hours in the sense of length of time, because people who miss the hours before midnight often say, well, I wake up tired, or I need 10 hours of sleep at night, or I need 9 hours of sleep, or they need more sleep. They still don't get restful sleep without getting those hours before midnight. So absolutely, you know, when you look at a sleep study and you see how it works, when you first start to sleep at 10 o'clock, you go immediately into deep sleep. It's kind of amazing. And that's where you get really restful sleep. That's really important. 10 o'clock, go to bed at 10, be in sleep by 10.
All right, let's see. Leslie, you want to go through a couple more of these questions? Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Having a great conversation with myself there. Let's see. I was looking to munchies. Can you take melatonin earlier so that you are actually getting your ghrelin hormone? We did address that a little bit too.
Yes, yes, you can take melatonin earlier. You can take melatonin anytime. Your whole body, like I said, it's in food, it's in your other cells make it. It's not only made in your brain, and a small portion of it that you're taking gets into your brain. So it's not like you're getting a huge dose, even when you take a larger dose. But if you take it earlier, you might get drowsy a little earlier, which I don't know if that's a big deal to you, but that's fine. Yeah.
Are there any foods or supplements that will improve circulation? This is coming from Carol.
Okay. Yes, to improve circulation, ginkgo biloba has been shown to improve circulation. And it depends on what kind of circulation. People with diabetes, they often get neuropathy in their legs because of poor circulation. And they get infections easily in their feet because they have poor circulation. And there is one thing that you can take specifically for that is benfotiamine. And that's why that's in the Nervala supplement, is because that improves circulation. Whereas foods specifically, there's an herb called horse chestnut seed extract that improves circulation pretty well in the legs. It helps the venous tone, so you get the blood going back to your heart easily. But as far as foods that improve circulation, the best things are the high fiber foods. Things like celery and broccoli and spinach and lettuce, salads kind of stuff. And fruits and vegetables, they improve circulation. In fact, when Dr. Dean Ornish, as a cardiologist, did some research, he did a fat-free diet, very high fiber diet, fat-free diet, and found that he could even reverse heart disease that had hearts that had poor circulation, and with just the high fiber diet.
What you said, horse chestnut something? What was that?
Horse chestnut seed extract. It's really high in certain bioflavonoids that improve the venous tone and help the circulation.
Okay, horse chestnut seed extract. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Did we address Alan Moss's question about sensitivity? No.
Not yet.
So Alan said he's become sensitive to the metformin extended release with GI symptoms. He's gone off twice, and then when he started back, symptoms came back. What options are available to replace metformin, or just continue on phase 1 without it?
Okay, that's perfect. 2 options. 1, just continue on phase 1 without it, because it's going to become superfluous when you're burning fat, because that's all it does. It tells your body, don't burn sugar, burn fat. That's what metformin blocks you from using sugar for energy and kind of forces your body into burning fat. Well, if you're doing phase 1, that's what you're going to do anyway. Well, and that's one of the reasons why we added cinnamon into the Cinechroma. The Cinechroma has the supplements that are commonly deficient, so that you can, in case you're deficient, you can become more sensitive to your insulin, like the chromium, the selenium, and the vitamin D, vanadium. Those are really for supplementation, so that you have sufficient, so that you become sensitive to insulin. And then there's the other insulin sensitizer, which is the cinnamon part. And that's really sort of to take the place of the metformin.
Excellent. All right. We have a question about blood pressure. Just now starting phase 1, my blood pressure has always been nice and low over the years. Should I now take turmeric BP? So turmeric BP is our anti-inflammatory supplement, and we promote it to help with blood pressure, but yeah, what are the benefits for people to take the turmeric BP if they don't have low or don't have high blood pressure?
Okay, if you don't have high blood pressure, the turmeric is not a high blood pressure medication. It's not a high blood pressure treatment. But if you have inflammation, your blood pressure goes up, then it will help the blood pressure go down. So that's an if question. If that's your issue, then this will help. And that's really what it's for. If you don't have that issue, if you don't have inflammation, if you don't have joint pains, if you don't have inflammatory pain or condition anywhere in your body, then the turmeric may not do. That's not something you necessarily need. Turmeric, just to take turmeric, I don't know, may not be helpful. It's good for many things. And I think if you take it periodically, it's good for decreasing inflammation generally, and not specifically for blood pressure. So if you have low blood pressure, you still may want to take it if you have any kind of stiffness in your joints or any other reason.
Excellent. All right. Okay, Dr. Saunders, have you heard of Resurge, the supplement that's gaining a lot of popularity right now? It's a sleep supplement, and I think it's got melatonin in it. It's also being promoted for weight loss. I can look it up quick if you haven't, and we could answer a different.
What's it called?
Resurge. I'll try to find it quick. I believe we have promoted it on our email list. So 1 second. Here it is. Okay, so it has, it's got magnesium and zinc, and then L-arginine, L-lysine, L-theanine, ashwagandha, griffonia, and 10 milligrams of melatonin.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. There's several out that are very similar. There's one that I often recommend because it's a liquid, because it's a powder that you put in water. It's Calm, C-A-L-M. That's a similar kind of thing, has the amino acids, the magnesium, and I think there's one formula that has melatonin also. And that's fine. All of those things will help you sleep, and none of them are of the kind of thing that would prevent you from getting into deep sleep. Like, you know, a lot of the things that we use for sleep, like if you've ever had Ativan or Xanax or Valium or sleeping pills, the prescription sleeping pills knock you out, but don't give you good sleep. You don't have normal sleep architecture when you're on those pills. It's kind of like drinking alcohol. I had somebody that said, I can't go to sleep unless I have a drink of wine at night. And I'm like, well, then you're not getting good sleep. That's why you have diabetes. So the knocking you out is not necessarily good, but all of those things that are in this supplement or in Calm are reasonable and won't change your sleep architecture. You know, if any of you are taking, what's for sleep? Darn, there's one that I'm blanking on the name right now. It knocks you out. It's related to Ambien. It's related to a benzodiazepine, and so it's a knockout drug. But it doesn't make you sleep. It actually just makes you unconscious. And so people, when they need to shut off their brain, they take this Ambien and it shuts off their brain. And then they can fall asleep, but not everybody falls asleep. Some people, it shuts off their brain and they get up and do stuff. I had a guy who was taking it, and he lives alone in his house, and he woke up and he found his tools were all messed up in his garage. He was like, someone's in my garage. He called the police. And then there was like stuff left out in his kitchen. He's like, I cleaned up the kitchen last night. Someone's been in my house. He calls the police. Then one day he woke up on the kitchen floor with like sandwich stuff spread out all over his counter. He's like, oh my gosh, that was me. I was doing that. Wow. And it's because Ambien will knock you out and make you unconscious and unaware of what you're doing. There have been people that have fallen out of, there was one person that fell out of a second-story window and died on that. And there were people that were driving at night on that. unconsciously driving.
Wow.
Yeah, so some sleeping pills, they don't give you good sleep architecture, and they don't really necessarily work. So I would prefer something like the supplement you're talking about to any sleeping pills.
Okay. Claire had to zip off, but she had a question earlier. So she actually has an appointment with her accountant. And so just a reminder for everyone, if you don't have your taxes filed yet or your extension, you've got about 2 days left till the 15th here. So.
Oh no, I better get started.
I just got mine done, I think, Friday. So I'm getting a little better. But thankfully, we had a 3-month extension. One perk of the coronavirus shutdown, right? So
yeah.
a little extra time to file your taxes. But her question was, and hopefully she can listen to the replay. And by the way, we do replays, or we have all of these will be archived on our YouTube channel, which you can find at bartonwebinar.com. And we'd love for you to click on the link there and subscribe to that channel so you can get notified of any new videos that we put up there. Her question was, is there any bad reaction between melatonin and HGH being taken within a few hours of each other in the evening? Or, well, let's stop there. There's more.
Okay, no. HGH and melatonin actually go together. It's like ghrelin, HGH, melatonin, testosterone, all the anabolic hormones work well together. The catabolic hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, they work together. And so melatonin and HGH, good combination.
Okay. What about HGH taken during the day?
Good question. Bad news. Okay, there is a reason why your cortisol drops down to almost 0 at night before you release your melatonin, and why you have to be in bed at 10 o'clock when that cortisol reaches its nadir. The bottommost level is when you just get 10 minutes of HGH released from your pineal gland, and that's to initiate that anabolic phase. When you start an anabolic metabolism while you have a bunch of cortisol around, catabolic hormones, you create cancer. And there's a lot of good research on that. And if you want to read about it, look up Walter Longo, PhD. He's a researcher at USC, University of Southern California, and on longevity research. And so, you don't want the IGF-1, the hormones that are anabolic, you don't want them to be building up cancer cells while you're making cancer cells during the catabolic phase. You want to separate those phases. Very good question. Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. She did have a little note here saying that vinegar capsules seems to head off heartburn in the evening. So we'll be talking about acid reflux and apple cider vinegar and some other things here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, that support that as well. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. One more celebration. Kate. All right, Kate, I'm going to get my pom-poms ready here. I started phase 1 back in April when my blood sugar was around 9.5. It took about a month on your program to bring my sugar down to 4.8. 4.8.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
1
normal.
month. Woo.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's normal. Between 4 and 5 is the optimal range. That's normal. That's perfect.
Yeah, way to go,
Amazing.
Kate. The doctor was very excited, and we are too. So I've since started to reintroduce some carbs, and my blood sugar is back up to around 7.5. So does that mean I should cut out carbs again?
Yes. Okay. So when your blood sugar came down because you weren't eating any carbohydrates, that was sort of just the beginning part of it. And so when you add in carbs and it jumps back up, that means you're still insulin resistant. So it may take a little longer on the phase 1 program. And exactly what you're doing is the way you're going to do it. You're going to test, and you're going to start eating carbs. And if it jumps back up into the 6s or 7s or 8s, then you're going to go, oh, I got to go back on the phase 1. And then when you go into phase 2 and start testing again, you go, you know what? I can eat the strawberries and my blood sugar doesn't go up. Boom. That's when you know you're on the right phase. You're on phase 2.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, we've gone a little over time. Thanks everybody for hopping on here. We have quite a few more questions. Well, at least a couple more questions we didn't get to, but we do, like I said, we have the YouTube channel where we post all of the replays for these webinars that we've recorded. There's a wealth of information in there, a lot of different subjects, topics that we've covered. And we'd love to have you guys join us next Tuesday. Submit your questions then, and we'll try to get to them as well. Or if you want to work with Dr. Saunders directly, he gave us his office phone number, which I will read that one more time here. So it's 805-688-7171, and that is his office's phone number where you can get more information about what we call the Dial-A-Doc program, which is really like a monthly membership where you can access Dr. Saunders directly. You can give him a call or text. If you have anything going on, he can help you right away, and he's great at answering questions, as you all have witnessed here on these calls. So, yeah, anything else? If you're watching this replay and you haven't registered, just go to bartonwebinar.com, register on the link at the top of the page, and then you'll get an email before each of our webinars to notify you and give you the link to Zoom so that you can hop on and join us and ask your questions then as well. So we love to get a lot of these questions answered so a lot of people can hear them, because a lot of people have the same questions. So, all right. Dr. Saunders, this was awesome. One of our best yet, I believe. And
well, they just keep getting better and better.
They do. Yeah.
Next time it's going to be even better.
Yeah. Well, it's great to get testimonials like this as well and hear from people that it's working. So, and I'm excited to hear how, as people start doing this, we call it the 6-10 reset, going to bed on an empty stomach at 10 o'clock. And, let's continue to encourage people to do that. I'm going to do better on that. I just set my alarm earlier to go to bed sooner in the day and practice what we preach a little better. So, Leslie, thanks for manning the controls and answering questions and managing Facebook and all that. And yeah, we will see you guys next week. God bless you guys. Have a good rest of your week and keep up the good work. All right. Oh, Dr. Saunders, any last parting final words? I'll give you the floor.
Okay. Three things. Don't eat after 6, go to bed by 10, and eat breakfast in the morning before 8 o'clock.
Awesome. All right. Good stuff. Well, I'm going to go eat lunch now. So this is good stuff. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. And I look forward to celebrating with more pom-poms in the future.